Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Smoke Break College Football channel. It's a Tuesday, which means it's time to look back at the weekend that was, but we find ourselves already here in Week 5, the season flying by as it always is wont to do. And so here we are once again. If you enjoy what we do and want to see more of it, then please hit that like and subscribe button. But nevertheless, welcome in. We're with you a couple times a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays looking back, Thursdays looking forward, and so looking back on this weekend, where to start? It was a massive, fun, chaotic, surprising weekend in college football, just the way that you draw it up, just the way that we all like it. And I think logically where we are and what we typically talk about, not only on this show, but also over on 365 Sports Monday through Friday, where we talk quite a bit about the Big 12. And look no further, I think, for a starting point this past weekend than Texas Tech defeating Utah in convincing fashion out in Salt Lake City, one of the several games we had in our pick'ems this week that we'll go through here in the next 10 to 15 minutes, and one that I flip-flopped on all week long, ultimately picking on the show earlier in the week, Utah, but not really feeling all that great about that choice, only to by the end of the week for our separate pick'ems contest to end up picking Texas Tech to win. So went 1-1 on my own picks, which is what you're going to do when you're picking both teams. But by the end of the week, I just felt better about Texas Tech. And I felt better about Texas Tech because I had confidence in their weapons. I had confidence in Baron Morton and that offense to have enough firepower against a very good, solid, stingy Utah defense. I just felt like they could break free and make some plays, whereas on the Utah side of things, outside of Devin Dampier squirreling loose and going on a long run of some sort, just didn't have as much confidence that they were going to be able to get things done offensively. And that was without probably putting as much respect as I should have on the Tech defense to begin with. Still enough to give them the benefit of the doubt, but now certainly after that game, feel like I owe them some more respect moving forward. Money well spent, recruiting well done by Texas Tech, Joey McGuire, James Blanchard, and that whole crew. You saw their talent on full display. You saw that team chemistry on full display. And even in a game where early on they should have been up by far more, in a game early on where clearly they were somewhat affected by that Utah crowd, lots of false start penalties, lots of hankies out on the field. And even in a first half where the game was close because both sides just could not hold on to the football, by the end of it, there was, when the dust settled, no doubt who the better team was, and that was Texas Tech. Just very impressive to go on the road the way that they did, overcome some of the early obstacles like the penalties, and then the later obstacles like your starting quarterback being injured once again in Baron Morton. By the end of it, not only did you feel great, by the end of it, not only was it a blowout, 34-10, but by the end of it, your quarterback replacement looked like he might be an even better quarterback one than the guy you started the game with. That's how good of a day Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders had, and now they are sitting right outside of the top 10, and rightfully so, getting their flowers. A long way to go in this football season, but in a matchup of two Big 12 title contenders, there was one heavyweight standing tall after that game, and it was Texas Tech, who now will move forward and have to navigate some landmines, but expect them to be favored in pretty much every game the rest of the way. As it stands right now, only one top 25 team left on the schedule, and quite frankly, of the 7 games remaining, BYU, that team there at number 25, they could very well remain in there for the next 5 weeks that it would take for Tech to play a ranked team. But it might have to be them. Kansas next week, or actually here in a couple weeks, maybe they're getting some top 25 love. Maybe Arizona State on the road in 3 weeks. But beyond that, Oklahoma State's not going to be ranked. K-State's not going to be ranked. UCF's probably not going to be ranked. And West Virginia is probably not going to be ranked. So there are still some landmines, and it is the Big 12, so everybody kind of looks eye to eye more than in most places. But if there is a team that's sort of looking down right now, the way that an Alabama, Georgia, Texas, et cetera, looks down on some of the lesser thans in the SEC, for example, or an Ohio State, Michigan looking down at some of the lesser thans, so to speak, in the Big 10, I don't think there's a lot of lesser thans in the Big 12, but I do think if anybody's looking down right now, it is Texas Tech. Very impressive win for the Red Raiders, and so they get to catch their breath this week and enjoy that one and try to get Baron Morton healthy, and interested to see what Joey McGuire has to say about that one. But got that one right and wrong, picking both sides of the coin. By the end, though, the Texas Tech gut feel was right, so congrats to the Red Raiders out there. Oklahoma beats Auburn in a really fun game out in Norman, 24-17, back and forth game. And in the end, Oklahoma able to get a couple scores there to retake the lead and then ultimately seal the deal. And this was one where I think if you walk away as an Auburn fan, you've got a mixture of emotions because you feel great about the fact that you went into Norman and you contended and quite frankly had a strong case to have had a path to have won that game in a couple of different ways. Unfortunately, you also walk away and you're pretty pissed off about the officiating in that game and several calls that should have gone differently, or if they had gone differently, probably changed the outcome of that game. Now, I am not one to sit there and wallow in officiating mistakes or to use that as an excuse all of the time. I do think there are several bones to pick if you are the Auburn Tigers and Hugh Freeze, but you eventually do have to pick up and move on. And I think that even despite some anger over how that game played out ultimately, you do have to look in the mirror a little bit as well. You need to realize that Jackson Arnold needs a little bit of a better internal clock, needs a little bit better of an alarm system to go off and when to be aware of the pocket collapsing in on him. 10 sacks in this game for Oklahoma. Throw the ball away, take off running, do something, but don't take 10 sacks in a game. That doesn't help you win either, no matter what is outside of your control. That very much is in so many ways. So what a damning stat for Auburn. What an incredible stat, on the other hand, for Oklahoma, who had a little bit of an up-and-down performance from John Mateer. Still very down when it comes to the run game, but he is a magic man in a lot of ways, and that's what makes him so fun to watch and makes that investment and the pickup of Ben Arbuckle as well such a big boost to this OU team in 2025 as they have a totally different swagger than what we saw a year ago when the offense was inept, changing quarterbacks, trying to find its way. They have an identity. The identity pretty much 99% revolves around John Mateer and whatever he can come up with, which is not going to always probably carry you week in and week out. But still, the identity is also one of a tough defense. I think you saw that on full display, and a team that just seems to have a little bit more swagger to them than they did a year ago, and certainly a lot more pep in their step and swagger after beating a team like the Auburn Tigers at home. So a really nice win for Oklahoma. You take them how you can get them, and in this case, it was a tough one, but it was an important one for the borderline top 10 Sooners there. So 4-0 now, and with Kent State coming up, they will certainly be 5-0, and then looming here in just about 3 weeks, what should be an incredible showdown with another top 10-ish team there in arch rival Texas. Miami and Florida. Miami, by the end of this thing, was clearly the better team, and I think throughout you kind of pegged them as the better team, but it took them a long time to finally break free and make this more than a close game. Really tight down to the wire. Start of the fourth quarter, you're going, all right, Miami's going to win this game, right? But Florida just kind of hanging around because of various factors. By the end of it, Miami able to breathe easy as they hand Florida their third loss, leaving the Gators now 1-3. But just kind of a pesky game there for Miami, where their lines are just so incredibly talented. You're hearing all the NFL buzz about what they've got in the trenches. Carson Beck didn't have the most impressive game, but picked up another win nonetheless. And so Miami, you feel good about where you are right now. But yeah, a bit of a sloppy game that was one that probably got a little bit too close for comfort there at times late. But by the end of it, you felt great. And this is the last time we'll see these two teams play for the foreseeable future. No scheduled dates moving forward. You got all the conferences now moving to these 9-game schedules, which leaves very little room to make sure that games like this continue to get played. There's carve-outs to try to make sure games like this still get played on a regular basis. But as far as Florida and Miami goes, nothing scheduled for quite a while. So Miami gets to hold on to this win and kind of savor it for the next few years. And we'll see if there's a playoff matchup on the horizon, although not anytime soon in Florida's current state. Miami, we'll see them there most likely. And this was a big step towards ensuring that here at the one-third mark of the season. But yeah, Carson Beck, not the most impressive game statistically. Miami, though, didn't necessarily need that. They are just so talented where it matters most there in the trenches, and that was on full display as they flex their muscles. And for Florida, well, it's just kind of more of the same and more wondering of when the Billy Napier train finally comes to a halt and they unload and then go a different direction and change tracks, change course. That seems like it's inevitable. But I think we're still going to be waiting a little while even though the outcome seems to be kind of writing on the wall at this point. Florida now 1-3 and as well documented an incredibly tough schedule still remaining ahead of them. So not sure how they find 5 more wins along the way to at least get to that bowl mark. But that is something and a job and a place that very much eyes are on right now and moving forward after that loss. Whereas Miami, it's all playoff talk pretty much around Coral Gables at the moment, with the ACC looking like a Florida State, Miami kind of race, and perhaps a Georgia Tech in that mix as well. But the Canes sitting right. A game that I could not have gotten any more wrong had I tried, and I tried to pick the winner of this game. I admitted, because I just felt so uncomfortable about my doubts about this game, I tried to throw out there and almost waved the white flag and like, man, I don't really know about this one. I don't feel the greatest about picking this game. I don't really feel like I'm all that well versed in either of these two teams at the moment. But I did kind of the same thing I did with the Texas Tech and Utah game. Did my initial pick earlier in the week when we picked on a Tuesday. Said, yeah, they're on the road, but I don't know. I'm going to go Illinois. And then by the end of the week, making my other picks, I had Indiana. And I think I need to lean with late week Craig Smoak picks because those worked out way better than early week Craig Smoak picks. And regardless of what I picked, the fact that I even gave Illinois any consideration at all, considering the way this game ended up, makes me feel like a big old dummy. 63-10 Hoosiers over the Illini. I don't know how Illinois is still in the top 25. Anybody that loses by 53 points, I don't care if you were at number 1 and you lost to number 2. If you lose by 53 points, that should be an automatic ejection from the rankings. I don't care if they're top 50. But nevertheless, Illinois still hanging around in the bottom of the top 25. You know, that way so the Big Ten can brag about how they have this many teams in the top 25. Never mind the fact that one of them just got beat by 53 by another team in the same league. So you talk about maybe a little bit of a separation between teams at the top and whatever you would now consider Illinois at this point. They're still 3-1, but they are 0-1 in the Big Ten. And did I mention they lost by 53 freaking points to Indiana on Saturday? Wow, embarrassing stuff for Brett Bielema and company. An incredible win for Curt Cignetti. My apologies, Hoosiers, for doubting you even one bit. What a buzzsaw. What a turnaround for this program over the last couple of seasons, and what a statement made. And yes, Indiana, much like last year, very much in the conversation as we get towards the halfway point, and very much looking like a team that could have a say in the playoffs when all is said and done. Not sure you put them at the level of an Oregon or Ohio State just yet, or maybe even a Penn State, but when you're talking about contenders in the Big Ten, throw Illinois the hell on out of there for the time being, and put Indiana in their place, or just in a place, because the Hoosiers absolutely deserve it, as they are inside that top half of the top 25 now and look like they could stay there for a good long while, especially with performances like that. Mendoza, really good for them at quarterback. That was a nice pickup this offseason, but a couple of interesting games coming up that will really be tests for Cignetti and company. At Iowa will be really intriguing this weekend just because of a 63-point outburst and going to a place where points are hard to come by. That should be a fun dynamic there, but then really fun here in a couple of weeks as they travel to Eugene to take on the Ducks. So Indiana, Oregon here in a couple of weeks. So long as they take care of business against Iowa out in Iowa City, easier said than done. But yeah, throw the Hoosiers right there at the top of the Big Ten conversation and the playoff conversation. Really, really impressive stuff from them. It was a hell of a weekend. Those were some of the highlights of games that were, I guess, top of mind. Some others around the Big 12, for example, you had Arizona State beating Baylor in dramatic walk-off field goal fashion. Thought that was a really nice win for Kenny Dillingham and the Sun Devils, and simultaneously a really tough and brutal loss for Dave Aranda and the Bears as they now fall to 2-2 on the season. Their playoff hopes really need to not be the top of mind thing right now, nor do Heisman Trophy campaigns for a quarterback who hasn't played all that well the past couple of weeks. The Bears need to just get back to winning and let the rest of the chips fall where they may. But that one certainly puts a dent in your overall big picture hopes and dreams. The Big 12 still very much alive, and an opportunity for you to go and grab that still remains. But it's a tough way to start off conference play for the Bears. Meanwhile, thought that Texas Tech obviously had a really good weekend. Teams like BYU, TCU continue to look solid. I think the Big 12 race is starting to kind of drop some of the the peripheral teams down a notch, and you're starting to see more of a top level sort of emerge. I think there's a middle pack now where like your Baylors, your Kansases, even your Arizona States I still would have there. And then I think you drop Utah into that sort of middle group as well. Teams that can still contend, but maybe aren't right there out in front leading the pack. Whereas you see a TCU, a Texas Tech, and Iowa State. I think those are the teams you start to really focus in on as leading the way right now. But a long, long way to go in that race, and really in all of these league races. Just mentioned Indiana could throw some wrinkles into the Big Ten race that kind of seems like it's going to be an Oregon State duel or a Penn State duel. Throw the Hoosiers into that mix, although you can push Nebraska to the side after this week in another one of those big games that I should mention, Michigan over Nebraska in Lincoln. I thought the Huskers were a fun choice and had a really good opportunity to try and change the narrative surrounding them, surrounding Matt Rule, lack of big game wins, lack of big top 25 wins. And ultimately, it was just more of the same for the Cornhuskers, who eat their first loss. And yet another loss at home, and yet another ranked loss, not even losing to Sharon Moore, but to an interim head coach, although a very well-established one, in Biff Poggi. And in the battle of young quarterbacks, for all the talk Dylan Raiola gets, a lot of it about his kind of weird fascination with Patrick Mahomes, but a lot of it about just his recruiting ranking and his talents and this and that. But it was Bryce Underwood, the winning quarterback at the end of the day, another young rising star who's shown a lot of goods here early on and really has a bright future there in Ann Arbor, to say the obvious and to say the least. He wins the quarterback duel. Michigan wins the game. And it kind of puts Nebraska back in that all too familiar spot of just, when are we going to kind of break through? Whereas with Michigan, even when it seems like they're a little bit down, they're still far more up than most teams. So a great win there by the Wolverines with an interim coach and a young quarterback in a tough place to play. So, man, love the way things are shaping up across the country. Big 12, I mentioned the race, a handful of teams there. Big 10, same thing. You look at the SEC. Texas with a dominant win over Sam Houston. An interesting conversation revolving around Arch Manning and his antics during that game, but a blowout win of the Bearcats nonetheless. That feels like maybe Texas is kind of getting some of their swagger back, for lack of a better term. Oklahoma with the big win over Auburn, but Auburn, a team you don't rule out as far as not being in the mix at all the rest of this way. Alabama's looking better. Georgia, obviously, that combination is going to see each other here in the next few days and will create some more chaos and separation. But that league's got a handful of contenders right now that are all very interesting. So we're not quite at the halfway point, but conference play starting up en masse across the country. And with the results that we have so far, we're shaping up to have some really fun races, not to mention what's going on right now in the G6s and teams like Memphis stepping up and picking up huge wins against the likes of Arkansas, for example. So a long way to go, and yet not that long of a way to go, as we're already here in week number 5. Huge weekend ahead. We'll talk about the big games on Thursday, pick those as well, break those down a little bit, and give our thoughts on how those might go this weekend and further shape the narratives moving forward. But as far as week 4 goes, we had a salty schedule. This one stands to be even better this weekend, although it doesn't always work that way. Like, it looks good on paper, it's awesome. More often than not, it does. But sometimes it's the ones that don't look that good on paper that end up being the most entertaining. Either way, we're in for a hell of a weekend once again as college football rolls on along. And I was highly sports entertained in week 4. Some big results, some fun games, and some new narratives to discuss. But, man, this weekend got some beauties in store, as well, as we'll get to, as I mentioned, on Thursday. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoy what we do. You want to see more of this type of show, or more of this show exactly, maybe more days a week, then hit that like and subscribe to support the channel. And until next time, I'm Craig Smoak, and this has been the Smoke Break College Football Show.